Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, where I, your host Mark Tucano, talk to those who would know about what comedy is. Every day I'm grateful for the ability and opportunity to laugh, and to those who create those opportunities. But does comedy mean the same to me as it does to them? In these interviews, I hope to find out. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 1,800 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an exciting musical comedian on the rise who's been compared variously to Tim Minchin, Bo Burnham and Kate Bush. They made their critically acclaimed debut in 2023 and this year returned to Edinburgh Fringe with their second solo show. It's comedian Holly Spillar. If you think about sort of growing up and family television, that sort of thing, was comedy a big influence on you back then?
So no, it wasn't. I would watch comedy on the television with my mum, but not often. And the only time in my childhood that I really remember like religiously watching something that was comedy every time it was on was Harry Hill's TV Burp,
right? Which
became quite a big thing in my family. But other than that, we weren't like a comedy family. No one ever went to see comedy. I don't remember any growing up saying that they were going to a gig or something.
Yeah.
But no, Harry Hill's TV Burp made its way into my house in a really big way, and also into my cousin's house. And so we'd spend Saturdays in my childhood sometimes reenacting the fights. Are you familiar with the format of there's a big fight at the end between two things that are two quite absurdist things.
Yes.
Like a shrimp and I don't know, a carrot of Coronation Street. And we'd always react them, me and my cousins. And so that made its way in, and Mrs. Brown's Voice made its way in, which I think is the same for a lot of families around that
time. So how did comedy start to take over then? What was your route into it?
Yeah, so I never thought about comedy. I always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I was an only child. I've got half siblings only. And so most of the time it was me. And I remember playing a game where I'd line up all my bears and perform what in my childhood brain was comedy. It was definitely just words with inflections in different places. And then I'd pause for a laugh and continue. And they never laughed. But no, but that was sort of it. And I never wanted to be a comedian or anything. And then I went to university to study theatre and making theatre. It was a very fringe theatre course. Everyone making very serious fringe theatre. And still didn't really think about comedy. Was like at that point, I think you get funnier at that age anyway when you're like 18, and there's inside jokes in your friendship groups that become longer and things like that. So I think there was like a more of a funny energy around me. And then when I graduated into the pandemic, and then in the pandemic, I had at that point a show that became my first show that was very serious at the time. And then I couldn't stand it. But I really stood by what it was about. And so I thought, if I can't stand it, no one will stand it. But if it was funny, especially in a time like this, being the pandemic,
yes,
then perhaps people will enjoy it and I'll be able to talk about the message of it without sounding like a young person ranting on again. So then I made it funny, and that was sort of that.
Yeah. So this is your show, Whole.
Yes, this is Whole.
I mean, you said about the subject. Do you want to run through what that was about?
Yeah, I'd love to. So Whole is a show about a condition called vaginismus, which affects around 30% of people with vaginas at some point in some way. But it's a condition that's not really talked about and is really hard to get a diagnosis for, as is a lot of sexual conditions for people with vaginas. But it's basically what it is it's a really painful condition that means that sometimes, if not all the time, you can't receive penetration in any way, whether that be through a tampon or for a partner, in a speculum, if it's for medical stuff, in any way. And the healing process from it, because it's partly psychological and partly physical, is really complex and is doable, but for different people. Some people it's a couple of weeks and they're like, oh, I guess whatever that was has gone. And for some people it's 25 years. For others it's, in my case, a few years and quite intensive therapy. But it was all about that, and about a girl at uni called Hole, because my family used to call me Hole because my name's Holly when I was a kid. And yeah, and it's about her journey with that. But she's quite a otherworldly character anyway, because she feels othered by sex and by lots and lots of things, and by the way her doctors, often male doctors, are talking to her, which reflects how they were talking to me. And so it's like her journey to getting a diagnosis, but with the problems that a normal 21-year-old would be facing. Yeah.
So you said about that started out as theatre students, production would always be very serious.
Oh yeah.
So what was it about that and doing that character then that you thought this would be better if it was funny?
Yeah. Well, I think I had a voice for the character that I found funny and was to lighten the mood anyway. And she's like, "Hi, I'm Hole. Say hi, Hole." So she's annoying anyway. And I also had, at the point in the serious version of the show, 2 puppet sex dolls called Linda and Belinda, who were my only friends. And I remember I did it in Manchester after uni. And I remember like just thinking, I was actually doing this annoying voice, holding 2 sex dolls, puppeteering them where they're saying their serious lines. And I was like, I can't perform this seriously with no irony. What am I doing? Yeah. And then I think it was just, I guess it was growing up. Like a lot of theatre students will relate to making quite bad, quite serious theatre at uni, at college, at school. And I guess something in me clicked and was like, no. Surely not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So when I've seen you perform, it's with what I think maybe it's fair to say that you're currently known for, which is the loop pedal, the music.
Yeah.
So how did that enter into it, and what part does that play? Does the music and the songs precede the story and the humour, or how does it come together?
So the loop pedal first came about before I did comedy. I was on like maximum loan, maximum bursary at uni, so I was rolling in it for like the only time of my life. And the bursary part of that, which is the bit you don't ever have to pay back, they gave me like an extra £250 a term, which at that point I didn't need because the loan was so large and the maintenance loan was so large, but loving it. And I loved the artist Grimes at the time, the musician Grimes. And she had a video of her on a rooftop in Mexico with like all of her musical equipment, and she was live producing music. And I was like, that's the dream. And then I Googled everything on her table, and the only thing I could afford was a £250 loop pedal, and it was that loop pedal. So I bought that, and then from then I've used it for everything, I guess, until a point I can afford to buy other Grimes rooftop instruments. So I had that. So that was in then every theatre piece I made. I sort of came from a music background before I did theatre. Right. So it was always going to have music in it. Yeah. And now I guess I write by a bit of both. Like I'll have a theme for a show or a bit, or a narrative or a point. And then either I'll write the bit and then be like, and here's the funny song, or I'll be trying to write the bit and I'll be like, oh, this isn't working. Why isn't it working? And then a little bit like, and the songs I wrote aren't musical theatre songs. They're sort of like weird old songs, I guess, with a pop structure sometimes. But yeah, I guess like how in musical theatre, they're always like, when you get to a point where there's so much emotion that it makes no sense for the character to keep talking, they sing. It's easier to articulate because then you've got all the music, and the music can be discordant or whatever. It's easier. So sometimes when I get to a point in the show where the character's really angry, or when something's happened that's quite serious and hard for me to articulate through a joke or through words, I'll sing a song, or I'll loop up a song and it will have a record and response or something. And I find that a lot easier, partly because I'm hiding behind it, because I've always got it, and partly because it's nice to, I think, especially when you're quite a young comedian like me, I've only done this is my second show that I'm writing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not fully sounded out yet.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to sometimes give the audience a break and be like, and here's a song, you can relax.
It's interesting that, I mean, you use words like protection and like character, and there's something I'm always quite interested in is how much of you is what we see on stage? Because ultimately these are your stories. This is your gleaned from your knowledge and your background. So how much of you are we seeing, and how much is it a character? And is that character easier to hide behind because it's not you, it's somebody else? And maybe they can say things that you perhaps wouldn't say, or it's easier for them to communicate a message that you're not comfortable talking about, perhaps. Are you a character of you on stage?
Yeah, I definitely, I guess the word is persona. I think I thought when I was making Whole has a name that isn't my name, Whole. And so I think I thought she was a character, but the more I look back on it, she is just a more surreal, more, I guess, otherworldly is a word that the reviewer used, and I think it fits really well because I steal it a lot. But I guess like a more otherworldly version of me. But she's experiencing all the same things. She's just being strange about it. I think also like Tall Child, my current persona, for want of a better word, or character for my new show, is more like me. Right. But the more I sound out what the show is, because it's not finished yet, the more she becomes slightly othered from me and more of a performance. But I think like, yeah, I think I have ADHD, and it means that I put on a bit of a mask in my everyday life anyway. And so whereas a lot of comedians, when I was starting and doing little tiny bits and hadn't done Fringe yet, were like, just be yourself. Just be yourself. That's the best thing you can be. And I agree with that. But I think I took that very literally as a neurodivergent person, and that's not something that works for me, because myself is quite spaced out and frightened and overthinks a lot of things. And so I think I need some level of performance persona so that I can say stuff without my brain on stage being like, and do they think that is real? And do they now not like me? Will somebody be upset? Like, yeah, I can be angrier with a persona.
Yeah. This character, Tall Child, the version that I have seen, obviously it's in flux at this point, but the version that I have seen, it very much emphasised 2 points, which is the rage that you're carrying around. Although it was an early work in progress, I'd say it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun being had on stage. It wasn't quite as angry as it might have intended to be, but also your working class background. So how important is the message at the heart of the show? How do you balance the importance or your conviction to what you're trying to communicate with the laugh content and the music?
I think, yeah, with the show is basically about the time that we live in now, the cuts to arts, and the fact that I think you saw the whip where I just lost my job and said it quite a lot.
Yes.
So apologies for that. But my job previous to the point where you would have seen it was looking after multimillionaire and billionaire children, which isn't the job I signed up for, but it was lightly glazed over as just a private like workshop for children thing. And so it was about me, how through the quite intense lens of being in houses of billionaires and looking after children that have multiple properties and know that already and know that you don't somehow at a very young age. Looking through that lens, your own life makes you so aware of the like massive class differences in this country and like everywhere. But yeah, I found that really interesting, and obviously that led towards some observational stuff naturally, just by the fact that it is such a severe difference. Like the biggest difference you can get is a billionaire and then someone from a working class background. Well, almost the biggest difference. But then I guess with the balancing that with the comedy, the music and stuff, I always think, how would I get my family who don't see comedy, and there's not a comedy club in my hometown and stuff, to come to a show that I was like, it's a little bit political and it's about this and it's about that. I'd have to be like, oh, it's really funny and it's got some music in it. And it's got a bit about Richard Branson, and then the character hates him, and they're like, that sounds weird. I will come and buy a drink and watch that. I think it's making it accessible, I guess, is the right word for that. Not that working class audiences can't and don't access all kinds of work and comedy and stuff. But when you haven't seen any of it, it's quite a jump to go from not seeing any of it, not even like your classic stag do stand up, like none of it, to a woman sort of playing on a riff of that, talking about her childhood and an instrument that isn't very common in like music gigs, so you might not have seen. It's quite a jump. And so I think the jokes and the silly parts of it makes it hopefully more accessible.
So given all of that, is there a point where you sort of say, I am a comedian? Do you call yourself a comedian? Do you call yourself an artist, a performer?
Yeah, I guess it depends who I'm talking to. In that I'm still developing my style and my voice and everything. And so like when I did Soho Theatre, I was very lucky to get a chance to do that with Hull. And I called myself a comedian because it was billed as comedy in Edinburgh. I was on at Soho. That made sense. And it was funny. People laughed. It had a lot of laugh out loud moments. It's always got a sort of theatre undertone to it. So I don't know what it is that I do, really. Like I feel bad when I tell people, like friends of friends that I meet at parties and stuff, if they're like, hey, you're a comedian. I'm like, I feel like that's a lie and that I might ruin their night if they were to come out hoping for me to be like, how are you guys? What are you doing? Because I can't do that. But yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes I say artist. Like I sometimes do writing workshops at unis. I like go and do a workshop, which is insane. But then I'll call myself an artist because I'm like, if you're not familiar with comedy, you won't know that there's alt comedy and there's other strains of it. So you're going to be very confused by what I do. And also it does have a theatre structure, or at least like a thematic structure. And so I guess artist sometimes makes more sense for some places. But yeah, I guess to stop whittering on, it would be that I don't know yet. But I'm doing it, apparently.
Yeah, no, it's very theatrical. Do you see yourself, because of this theatre background, do you see yourself as like an actor performing a comedic play rather than a comedian in that sense?
I guess a bit of both. I think the persona or performance side of it solidifies it a bit more in a theatre-y world. Yeah, because she very much performs it, and I have to be very careful when she steps out. Like if someone shouts out, or if someone, like in a hole, there were a few purposefully quite obvious jokes that the audience would finish, and then I'd respond to that. But it's like difficult because she's so heightened to step out, I guess. Yeah, I guess like a lot of comedians do, and artists do. I'm like artist, writer, comedian, musician. I do the slash thing, the annoying slash thing where sometimes it goes on so long that you're like, you can't be all of these things. Mine's only like 4. But I say that I think it opens you up to more work as well. Like I'd love to write for things. I do really enjoy acting, come from an acting background. So I think it helps, especially when you're early career and you have reviewers coming in, it helps them place you to be like, oh, I did these things, and that is why what you're seeing today is this this slightly strange thing, because I've mashed all of the things I know together, having only seen Joe Lycett live once.
So do you have then, between the writing and the performing and the comedy and the music, do you have a happy place? Do you have a comfort zone where you feel most content doing? Is it the writing? Is it being on stage?
I think most content either when I'm writing, I'm writing a song, especially a song, but when I'm writing, content. And either just after a show, I think that's quite a common one. Just after a show, you're like, I did the thing and it went well, hee. Like that's nice. Or like midway through a show that you were like, oh God, especially work in progress. The one you saw was a little bit iffy, but like sometimes you do work in progress and you're like, oh God, no. And then you get halfway through and you're like, oh no, they understand it. So I'm going in the right direction. That's really exciting,
Yeah.
because the pressure of the actual performance has been removed. There's no reviewers there. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But you know that the audience, as they understand you, and you're like, okay, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I guess those.
Well, Hull received a lot of good feedback when it debuted. So how do you feel about feedback and criticism and reviews and things like that?
I love it. Again, when I did Hull, my producer was just my mate Nathan from uni, and Theo from uni. And so they were doing it for free. We knew we weren't going to make anything for the Fringe. We had no PR. We bought as many flyers as we could afford to buy. That was sort of it. And so the fact that we got any reviews was like amazing. And the fact that Nathan was on it and got me like so many people to come to the show was incredible. And so I always feel with like feedback and stuff, I just welcome it, because I have like normally have 1 or 2 jobs.
Yes.
And I don't have people professionally working for me that are paid, or helping me with the show that are paid. And so sometimes reviews, especially in that first show, are one of the only places I get feedback, aside from, I have an amazing dramaturg called Ben Frankham, and he works for me for free, mostly out of the kindness of his heart. And my producer, Charlie Ralph, now directs Tall Child, again, out of the kindness of his heart, unless we make any money, which we probably won't. Happy with those reviews, very happy. Still think about them now. My mum has a little flyer with all my reviews stapled on her wall.
Oh, nice.
It's very cute.
Yeah. We talked about you sort of debuting Hull as a drama, essentially. Do you remember the first time when you debuted yourself as a comic and the reaction that you got?
Yeah. So it was after I spent the pandemic sort of writing Hull into a comedy. And then I got a slot at Camden People's Theatre.
Yeah.
And to do like an hour of it, which I guess was a work in progress, but I didn't know that was a thing then. So I think I just did it. And I remember thinking, it doesn't matter if this isn't funny. I've written it in my mum's lounge. Like, if it's not funny, it's just something that I tried, and I'll go back to making it like theatre again. And then it got like a real, like, what felt at that point, especially from a venue that often does more theatre than comedy, a really comedy response. It was mostly an audience I didn't know. There were some really loud laugh points. I was like, oh, okay, this feels really nice. And it was like my favourite thing that I'd done up until that point.
So you've mentioned a few people that you saw early on. How far do you feel like you've received inspiration from other comics that you've seen? Or are there people now who continue to re-inspire and reinvigorate you?
Oh, yeah, completely. Like, because I hadn't really seen any comedy when I wrote Hull, like I literally wrote Hull having seen Joe Lycett live once in 2018, like years before.
Yeah.
I think even earlier, I think 2016. But like, that was the only reference point other than TV comedy that I'd had.
Yeah.
But I think, the more I go into comedy, the more I find the people that other people were maybe aware of before they wrote their first show. Like Maria Bamford is my biggest inspiration. I love her. I found her by someone said what I was doing in the pandemic. They were like, this is more like alt comedy, and didn't know what that was. Googled female alt comedians and found her, and then like loved it and binge watched everything. And I've read all her books. So like, I think she's my favorite. And then like more recently, I have found like John Kearns, who I didn't know existed until Varnishing Days. And like, this is going to sound like an obvious one, but I didn't know Stuart Lee existed until like maybe 6 months ago. And so I was like, oh, so much of my friend's work makes sense now. It's so clearly inspired by this person. I wonder who he's inspired by. And then I'll look it up and be like, oh, these people. I have a context now I feel like I really missed out on. So no, I think I'm collecting people as I go along, and like I'll see like people that are becoming like, I guess my age comedians. Like there's a comedian called Alice Cocaine, and she's fantastic. And I saw her at Edinburgh when I was there in 2023. I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. This is insane and amazing. And there's a comedian called Rachel Baker, who is she has a character called Gwen, and I think is one of the best comedians I've ever seen. And I'm obsessed with her work. But yeah, so the more I go along, and I wonder how that will. I was talking to a comedian called Lachlan Warner about how like he came from a similar thing where he didn't really see any comedy and then wrote a show.
Yeah.
And we were both saying like sometimes it gets to the point where you feel saturated. Like if you wrote your first show and you hadn't really seen any comedy, and it sort of came from I guess a more natural voice other than TV influencers and all this stuff. When you write your second show and you've seen too much comedy, it's like, what does that do to your work? And I still don't know. I'm going to find out this year.
So as you say, whole 2023, and then this year you're following that up with Tall Child. So how has your Edinburgh experience as a whole been so far, and what do you envision for this year?
So the first year I did it, 2023, it was like the best month of my life. I had an incredible time, and it was shattering, but like it went as well as it could have gone with the money that we didn't have. But afterwards I got very sick for a few months, as I think a lot of people do. But like I've tried to go straight back to work because again, I had to go straight back into my normal job in retail, and didn't realise how ill I was, and then got more and more ill and was in debt from the Fringe for like a year and a half. And I think the first Fringe I did would have cost me just under £5,000, almost like half of which was borrowed and took me so long to pay back. And so I think this Fringe, although I'm like, the first one was the best month of my life, I'm so excited to do that again. I'm aware of a lot of things have changed, like my work, which is what my show is about. My work got a lot more intense. And so I've had less time to write than I did with my retail job in the first show. And that's really scary because when I did Whole, I'd long finished it by now. And also I have the Keep It Fringe fund this year, but I've still had to borrow about £2,500. So it's going to take me another year and a half to pay that back. And again, like I'm now nervous for my health because I will have to go straight back to work after the Fringe. And I'm in a slightly different living situation now. And I moved to London, which I'm leaving to do the Fringe because I wouldn't have been able to sustain rent, and my rent in Bournemouth is a lot cheaper. But yeah, so I think I have a lot more life things, being only like 2 years older, that have trickled in, that have made it a little bit more complicated and have made the show not a lot less ready, because it will be ready, but at a completely different point than Whole was. Like the point that my show is at now, Whole was at a year before, partly because of the pandemic, partly because my job was a bit easier.
It seems a redundant thing to ask, but how do you feel about a comedian who has the resources, or who has, even though they may be minimal, enough to survive on their art alone? How they fare in terms of time and what they're able to concentrate on their work, as opposed to someone who has to, out of necessity, have additional job or two jobs, and where they live is decided by literally the amount of money that they can afford. How does that compare in your mind as an angry working class comic?
Yeah. So it's tricky because part of me obviously wants to be that comedian and is aspiring to, through my own like building and doing my other jobs and stuff, one day hopefully being that comedian. But I think what's difficult about it, because again, like your class background isn't your choice, and so if you're born into money, or you live in a certain area or whatever, like of course if you've got those opportunities afforded to you, you have to take them, because life is life and everyone has different experiences of it. But it is difficult when I know my work that was made mostly at 7 a.m. an hour before I had to leave to work, and then it's like 7-8 p.m. when I've got back from work until I can't open my eyes, is going to be different work than the work of someone whose full-time job was to make the show, or full-time job was to do art, is to write, is to perform. And within that, find time to make the show, whether that portion is paid or not. That's a different life. And it's difficult when you know that you'll have the same reviewers, and those reviewers don't know that context. And even if they did, they do have to measure it against the other person's show as if they were the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it would be weird to do it in another way, because it would suggest that maybe working class artists' work isn't professional, which isn't true. It's just made in a different way.
Yeah.
And so it's a very tricky thing. But there are complex feelings around it. And I do sometimes catch myself with a bit of a chip on my shoulder. And I have to, like, I had a conversation once with a clown called Lucy Hopkins about it at the end of the first Fringe. I was like, I didn't realise how many comedians are really rich to do the Fringe. And that shouldn't surprise me. And that's not their problem. But it's bothered me, and I need to diffuse that. And she was like, yeah, you can't carry that with you. Like, you've got to just let that go, like you would in any other industry. Because like those people could be your friends, but also like it's no one's fault, their class background. You just need to there just needs to be more help for working class artists in Fringe, and there needs to be maybe some means tested bursaries, but then again, means testing costs an insane amount and doesn't really make sense. There needs to be something else that's just for low income artists, because it's so impossible. And my favourite comedians can't come to the Fringe this year, and their shows are so much more finished and ready than mine, but they can't because it's financially impossible unless you've got some people you can borrow money from and a Keep It Fringe fund. But yeah.
Again, we've spoken a little bit about some of the artists that you've seen recently. I mean, do you still watch comedy for fun, or do you watch it for research, or do you watch it the same way?
I watch it in a different, I guess it's the same like when I did my theatre degree. Like, a theatre gets weirder when you watch it because you're like, I know how you did that bit, or oh, that's this story arc that I learnt about. I guess comedy is similar. Like, now I watch it and I'm like, I get, sometimes, not always, because I'm still new, but sometimes I'm like, I understand how you got there, or I can see who this TV comedian is inspired by because I know of that now. But yeah, no, I definitely still watch it for fun and like a whole big range of it. And sometimes watch it for research. Like, there'll be a bit from a comedian that I'm like, oh, like that's so clever and I've never seen anything like that, so I want to rewatch it so I can maybe still like an artist and find my own way around that. But also just, again, like I hadn't seen really any comedy until 2 years ago, and so it's still quite new. And so I get excited when I go to a comedy club to see comedy, or when I go to see, I guess, like a bigger comedian. I get excited because it's still a new experience for me. Weirdly, now I'm more familiar with performing, I guess, the outsider comedy that I seem to be making more than seeing the comedy that people actually like to consume. No, but yeah, but no, I like comedy. I might watch some later today.
Do you have targets that you set for yourself? Maybe they are just like, one day I want to play this venue, or in 5 years I want to do this, or I want to appear on a bill with this comedy hero, if you like. Do you have objectives that you set for yourself?
Yeah, they're slightly looser. It's volatile times, but yeah, I want to be professional in what I do, and I think I'm trying to work out that, like, I want that. I don't know if that will be in comedy or in performing or in whatever, writing something. But I want to, in hopefully not too many years, be professional, and in the next couple of years hopefully be part-time, a normal, for want of a better word, normal job person, and part-timer comedian, or part-time. That would be nice if I was making money from it. But yeah, my goal is to do it professionally full-time. I'd love to do a TV slot when I'm a little bit more well-rounded as an act. I'd love to be someone's tour support. I'd love to be on a bill with Maria Bamford somehow at some point. And yeah, I all of that good stuff. And also just like I'd love my work to become what I want it to be when I imagine it in my head. I think, like, when you're writing something, especially when you know you're not quite there but you're working it out, Like, I'm like, I have a vision for this, which is so lovely.
Mm.
And I know how that would work. I think also part of it is time. Like, I have an arc that I had and wrote for Tour Child, which I love, and consisted of two different personas and a what the persona thinks normal comedy is. It's annoying to explain. I'm sorry. But yeah, I loved this arc that I came up with, but I can't do anything with it because I looked at it and I was like, that would take me a year to write.
Mm.
And I have a morning and an evening sometimes. And so I can't overshoot it because I'd end up making a poor piece of work.
Right.
And so I think to be able to write and perform to the level that I know that I could be capable of, but don't have the time, would be really nice.
Yeah. Given what you've just said and spending £250 on your one item of tech, if you like.
Yeah.
Given time and resources, what is the ultimate thing that at the moment might be elusive, but a long-term thing that you would love to have access to, something you'd be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love, like, if I'd love all the equipment that Grimes has on her Mexico rooftop video on YouTube. I want all of that. I want someone to teach me how to produce music live. I think that would just elevate everything because I know, like, I've written music with different layers and for different parts before, but to be able to do it all myself would be so fun. And to make a show that was good enough to be a special and be released in like a nice size theatre, and I could be like, yeah, I made that and enough people liked it and supported it that now people can watch it on iPlayer. I guess.
So I don't know what you've done in the sense of competitions, but Edinburgh Fringe is a massive competition in itself, competing for attention with among 4,000 other shows. I mean, do you have a competitive streak in you?
Yeah, I definitely have. Well, not so much a competitive streak. Like, I was talking about this with I'm produced by Big Head, and there's 8 of us, I think, this year. And I don't think there's any competition between any of us because it's all very different work. And so I think also the work that my friends make is often quite different to mine. And so their successes and downfalls feel different to mine. And so I don't think there's so much as competition as wanting to be in the same room as them, I guess. I guess I want to see a progression in my work and in the work of my peers.
Yeah.
More so than competition. I don't think I've found someone yet whose work is similar enough to mine that I'd be like, oh no, how am I going to convince this venue to take my work and this person's? Like, I haven't found that. I think that's the nice thing about alt comedy. I guess if you can call what I do that, alt comedy, theatrical comedy, musical comedy, like everyone tends to do it quite differently and differently often enough that you're not like, well, we're clearly both inspired by this one comedian and it's this. And so, yeah, the less competition, more, I feel driven to succeed, and I'm quite pragmatic with how I work. And at uni, I had like a big light banner above my bed that said determination. So like, I think for better or worse, but I think, yeah, that's something that is in me, maybe slightly less than competitive.
Yeah. You mentioned about Big Head Comedy. You have this loose conclave of other acts all sort of going up together. You have a connection of some sort. Does that afford you some protection because you don't have necessarily something to compare yourself to, but you do have this peer group? Does that afford you some sort of security in that sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it gives me a base of people to check in with and be like, are you finding this fringe, or did this reviewer say this to you? Like, it's nice to have that. But also there's a few acts in Big Head that are also like, and they've talked about this before, so that they won't mind me saying, but are also working class artists from a very similar background than me, working different jobs, trying to do this comedy thing. It's taking years and years to be able to actually do it and all this stuff. And so, like, it's really nice to have them around to check in on. And also, if things get a little bit hairy, or if you get half through the fringe and you remember that you're in debt, not that people with more money aren't in debt for the fringe. I think a lot of people are. That's just how it works. But to have someone to be like, oh my goodness, like, statistically we shouldn't be here. How are you feeling about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a single lesson that you've learned so far that sort of informs what you do going forward, a sort of like that sign determination? There's a message that you carry with you from one important thing that you've learned so far?
I guess I'm only still learning this now, but like write stuff that you enjoy saying, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense. But if it's all stuff that you enjoy saying and you look like you clearly are having fun, the audience will have fun too.
Yeah.
And so not to censor silliness and to try and make a joke structure instead. Like a lot of things I say that is framed as a joke, if you read it on paper, you're like, that's a sentence. There's nothing in. Like, I think to just allow yourself to do whatever. And that, yeah, again, like, although I can't like not be a persona and just be myself on stage comfortably, like, I think there is an element of like, make the work that you can make, because only you can make it. I mean, everyone says that to everyone. Mm-hmm. I think I remember being told that by an English teacher as a child at school, but it is relevant. Like, only you can make the work that you can make. And so when you're looking at other people's work and going, damn it, I could have done that, you probably couldn't. Which is why you've made the strange cacophony of stuff that you've made, and that people will find that and hopefully like it.
You can do that. What they're doing is just that you would do it your way. You would do it different.
Yeah, exactly that. You can do what they're doing, just not how they're doing it.
Yeah.
That would be theft.
So on the subject then of writing things that you enjoy saying, do you ever keep anything in just for you, even though it might not play well in front of an audience?
Not when it doesn't play well. I've definitely had things in whips. Like my last whip, I had a line about being smuggled into Devon, which was just for me, because I find Devon, I've got family in Devon, find Devon funny. But that I knew before I even said that, I was like, I'm going to say it just in case for some reason I found my audience through this Devon line. But like, it was always just going to be for me. But I'll never keep those in just for me, unless it's something that I know isn't a big laugh, but will forward the structure. And I haven't found anything better. There's a few lines in Whole where I'm like, that's nonsense, but if I don't say that, the next bit doesn't make sense, and I haven't had enough time to think on that enough to come up with a better one. But other than those, like, I sometimes like I have bits that are for me and the audience, and I'm like, oh, this song's coming up, hooray. But I won't hopefully I don't, because otherwise they're paying. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about your upcoming show, Tall Child, a fair old bit, but just for the sake of consistency, why don't you give me the elevator pitch? What is the show? Where and when can we see it? What's it all about?
Okay, so Tall Child is on at Underbelly, Bristow Square, Dexter's at 5:45 p.m. for all of Fringe other than 2 Tuesdays, which I currently can't remember, but they will be known. And it is all about my experience working with ultra wealthy children earning minimum wage, and how that made me hold up a lens to my own life and to the working class experience, and also the sometimes not so happy experience that ultra wealthy people have, and then use that experience to talk about arts and access to arts and what the future will look like if a certain prime minister does continually manage to strip arts out of the syllabus of state schools. But yeah, it's not as political as I made that sound. I promise. But it's got music in it. It's got a funny bit about Richard Branson that I like. And it's got a bit about a samosa. If you've ever enjoyed one of those, you'll understand it, hopefully.
So what so far have been your worst and best experiences in doing comedy?
Okay, so best experience was doing Soho Theatre, because I'd wanted to do it since I was making bad, serious theatre at uni. Like, I'd always been like, I'll do Soho Theatre with this bad theatre show that I'm making. And so when I got Whole in there off the back of Fringe and we sold out 2 days, like, that was the best feeling. Also, I wasn't living in London at the time, so I didn't really have any friends going. I had like a couple of friends each night, so it was mostly just audience that hadn't seen my work, seeing my work, and they were so responsive. And I got a cheeky standing ovation, and that felt amazing, especially like that's not something that happens often. So for me, so that felt really good. And so that's the best experience. I think the worst one, I think it's probably been parts of making this show. Maybe even the whip that you saw, being one of my work, because I've been so aware that I haven't had time to make it until very recently, when I've been moving out of London and working slightly less. And I think that's also made me angrier, because it's made me realise that like my cushy retail job before, that I was also like doing a bit of teaching, gave me more time than I have now. And so working 40 hours in a really intense job that shatters you by the end of the day, it made me realise the experience that a lot of other working class artists are having and have had for years, that I'd sort of not quite understood, even through working full time, but in different ways. And so I think doing that and making a show is probably like, until now, when I have the show, I just need to keep writing it, has been not too good, not too fun. It's been a bit tricky. I've done a few tricky work in progress where I've been working so much that I've been like, I haven't had time to even learn this. And so it's on a laptop. And for the kind of work I make, 'cause it's a bit theatrical, I don't get much out of that. I have to know the whole thing word for word, because like I said, some of the jokes are sort of non-jokes. And so they don't work when I'm reading them. I have to know how to deliver them and all of this. So yeah, I guess that maybe the whip you saw. Although I had fun, I did enjoy it. It was a lovely small audience. But I think I knew it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
I didn't come away thinking, well, that needs work. I came away thinking that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. So
well, bless you. Thank you.
Really looking forward to seeing it at the Fringe in its, let's say, finished state.
Oh, well, thank you.
So how can we find out all about you and where we can come and see you performing?
So if you follow at Holly Spillar on Instagram, and at Big Head Comedy, that's my producer as well, you'll be able to see what's going on and what I'm doing. That's pretty much the social media I have, I think. I don't have a website yet. Someone found my old uni website the other day, which was nice to know that it still works. But no, just at Holly Spillar, and I'll be posting all of my stuff from then. And yeah, please come see me at Underbelly. It would be really, really nice to have you there. Oh, so before Fringe, you might come and see me at the Omnibus Theatre on the 22nd of July, doing my final whip before I go up to Edinburgh.
And so I come down to my last question then. Question I always ask all of my guests. How, Holly, would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Comedy in a nutshell is a podcast. But no, Mark, no. Comedy in a nutshell. It's hard, isn't it, to define that? I guess there's like what it is for me and what it is. Yeah, so comedy in a nutshell to me is like a theatre kid's antidote to serious Fringe theatre, as that's what comedy is to me. But maybe comedy in a nutshell would just be, I don't know, I guess it's a community. I think also because I operate mostly in alt comedy and a lot of my friends are clowns and stuff. When I think about it, I just think of a large group of people. Like it's what like all the creative kids at school imagined would be like, yeah, we're going to keep doing this forever, and we'll keep meeting up in corridors and hiding from PE and instead doing all of these secret little things. It feels like comedy, especially the alt comedy community, have somehow managed to smuggle that really lovely energy into adulthood and onwards in order to sort of like stay young and creative and fun. And I think that's sort of what comedy is in a nutshell. Maybe a group of people hopefully doing something they enjoy and having fun.
Holly, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been a genuine joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.